In a moment, we'll be looking at Scientology, which, of course, is a religion that often hits the headlines, especially with celebrity followers such as Tom Cruise and John Travolta. And indeed, in the paper this morning, Priscilla Presley, widow of Elvis, has actually said she's had enough. She doesn't want to be part of them anymore. So there's a story. And it was first developed in the 50s by American author Ron Hubbard. Now, he describes the belief as knowing about knowing or science of knowledge. Now, a new headquarters for the organisation has opened this weekend in Moseley in Birmingham. It's on the site of the former Pitmarston House and will be called an ideal org. There are currently 8 of these churches in the UK, and it's been reported that this new church cost millions to build. Well, yesterday, the church hit the headlines again. There was quite a bit of controversy as protesters gathered outside the new centre. And one of those was Pete Griffiths, and he's a former Scientologist who has travelled across from Ireland, and he joins me now on the line. Good morning, Pete.
Good morning, Llewela. How are you?
Yes, I'm very well. A bit of a throg in my throat this morning. I think it's the change in weather, but there you go. I'm of that certain age now. Anyway, let's get into this. Am I right? You were a member for 7 years. Now, what made you leave?
Well, I actually left twice, which is kind of interesting. The first time, my wife and I were starving, and she was pregnant with our second child. That's why we left. We just could no longer go on living the way we were living.
And how were you living?
We were actually claiming benefits whilst working for Scientology, and I don't know if that still goes on, but that we had to do that. We didn't have a choice. Even when I joined them, I was promised I'd earn about £200 a week. The truth is, I don't think I got that in the 3 years I was there. So I was misled.
What were you having to do then? What when you say £200 a week, what were you doing?
Well, everyone had different jobs. My particular job was contacting people and turning them into Scientologists. And the way you do that is either with the stress test or the personality test, or just simply by talking to someone, asking them what they'd like to improve in their life, and then telling them that Scientology could help them, and then making them do a course or buy a book.
What made you become a Scientologist in the first place? Presumably you came to it just later in life.
Well, it felt pretty safe to me because my brother was doing it and my wife was doing it. So it just seemed natural to sort of like join in with the self-help fad, because it wasn't a religion, it wasn't Scientology that we did Dianetics. So we were led in, again, under false pretenses, you know.
Now, the church itself, what they say is that it's about true spiritual enlightenment and freedom for all. And some might say to you, Stevie, I mean, okay, you claim you had a bad time with it, you left twice. But for others, it works, and everyone's got a right to follow their own beliefs.
I absolutely agree with you. People are allowed to believe what they wish to believe, and I would never, ever take that right away from anybody. The problem I have with Scientology is in the behavior of the organization itself. The way when you become a Scientologist, you put Scientology before everything, including your own family, and it can be quite heartbreaking. Families do get broken up, and that's the least of what goes on. I mean, if you start scratching the surface and doing your own research, you discover an absolute horror story.
What sort of horror stories? Just give me an example.
Oh, well, I know the Catholic Church is renowned for the child sex abuse cover-ups. Scientology is in a similar position. In addition to that, there's been some terrible deaths that have occurred.
Well, and of course, that of course is your claim, isn't it? That's what you're alleging.
People have died, let's say, and there's a Scientology connection. And rather than phone the authorities, the person calls Scientology first, and they all try and get their story straight. There's been a lot of that gone on, not particularly in the Midlands, but certainly in the UK. And it's bothersome that they just get away with it. It concerns me, and it's one of the reasons that I speak out, not only to warn people about the dangers of Scientology, but also to hopefully reach some of the Scientologists themselves and get them to, well, see that they've been hoodwinked, because essentially they have.
But you see, my point is, Steve, that, I've met people from all different walks of life. I've met people who've had very bad times being brought up as maybe, in the Catholic faith or or any faith, and they really have a bad time. And they almost, when they're adults, have it's an obsession. They really don't want anything to do with something they were brought up with. Is it just a case that you just had a really bad time, and this if you like, without trying to, I mean, I don't know you, you become a bit obsessed with it.
It's a valid point, but in my case, I didn't have that bad a time. I mean, looking back on it, I don't regret it, but I would not do it again. Other people have had much, much worse times than I have, and it's for them that I want to warn other people not to get involved. Now, nobody has to listen to me, I mean, don't get involved in that. Yes, okay, that's my advice. But I do recommend that a person makes up their own mind and decides for themselves. And if they have interest in Scientology, go and check it out. But from my point of view, you will regret it.
You obviously feel very strongly about it because you made the journey over from Ireland to Birmingham. What happened yesterday?
It was rather interesting. The media, of course, were blocked out by coaches. They were parked end to end, about an inch apart from each other. And in the gap that there was, which wasn't very much, there was a person standing with an umbrella blocking the view because they didn't want the media or anybody else, for that matter, to have photographs of this event. I think one of the reasons is because there was about 300 or 400 people there tops, and they're probably going to claim thousands. So they like things to be on their own terms, the Scientologists. BBC were there, ITV were there, and they were just basically blocked out.
All right, Pete, well, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure, Llewela.
Thank you.